Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football, and proudly sponsored by Stiarna Apparel. My name is Angus and today I'm joined by Euan. Euan, how are you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm really good, albeit, slightly disappointed with our result up in Pittodrie. It kind of dampened my wee co-com's debut, sadly, not getting a result to go with it. But I want to say thanks to Dave Black for asking me on. It was a very different experience, a wee bit strange, but not being in the away end, but a great experience nonetheless. Really enjoyed it. Sadly, wasn't the most entertaining of games, and as I say, the result not to go with it. But we did get a win for our women's side yesterday, which both of us were at as well. So there is some positives to talk about. What about yourself, mate? How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, I guess. I don't know if I need to watch what I'm saying this week. I don't know, walking a wee bit of a tightrope following last week's comments on certain performances. But other than that, doing not too bad. As you say, the Aberdeen game, not the greatest for us. And then also we're going to talk about, the kind of more in detail that game as well as the women's one. But yeah, not too bad. But as always, you can find this episode as well as all of our others on your preferred podcast streaming site. Just search for Talk Livi and follow us and subscribe to ensure you don't miss another episode.
We'll kick things off by discussing our long 12-hour journey there and back to Aberdeen in the northeast, as unfortunately the Dons edged out the Lions at Pittodrie.
Our women's side were up against Dryburgh at the Tony Macaroni Arena and left it late as it came from behind to pick up 3 points.
And finally, I caught up with Colin from the Longbangers podcast to get the lowdown on Hibs before their visit to West Lothian.
The Lions made the trip north to take on Aberdeen at Pittodrie. A goal on the stroke of half-time from Bojan Miovski would prove the difference as the Dons secured the 3 points. Euan, obviously you were there, co-commentary debut. Not the most ideal game for you to have that privilege of, that one being the one that marks your co-com's debut, is it?
Yeah, it's like I was really hoping for a late equaliser because the gantry is right above the Aberdeen fans, and I was hoping I could give it absolute laldy if we managed to get a late equaliser and nick something from the game. But as you say, it wasn't a great spectacle. I actually saw a tweet from an Aberdeen fan I know. I think he actually summed up Aberdeen's performance quite well in that it was quite McInnes-like in a way. And he said that was one thing you could always say about the McInnes era was the rubbish games Aberdeen would come out and win 1-0. And I think that's probably a good way of analysing it from an Aberdeen perspective. Certainly from ours, we kind of predicted, I said on the Red Tinted Glasses podcast that I kind of thought our midfield would be the 2 Kellys and Pittman, which materialised. Obelai kept his place at centre-back. That's something me and you certainly discussed, whether you bring Morgan Boys back in there. And we got that front 3 we were kind of expecting, which was Nubly, Anderson and Bradley up top. The first half, I don't think there was a great deal in it. There was the odd occasion where we had a little bit of sustained possession without creating a great deal. We had a lot of throw-ins in and around their area, a lot of corners as well. Same up the other end for Aberdeen. I actually thought Aberdeen were quite direct in the first half. especially trying to find Duke on the left-hand side. They weren't playing through the thirds quite as much as I maybe anticipated they might do. And I kind of mentioned that on commentary as well during the game. And yeah, there wasn't a rack of chances being created. Duke had one where he started the attack down in the corner and then missed an opportunity at the back post. McCrory had that one again. It was a long ball over the top. Took a good first touch, but Nicky Devlin's done really well to recover and get the tackle in. And then there's the goal from Miovski. The initial corner's been whipped in at the front post. I think Penners does really well clearing it off the line. The ball's gone out to our left-hand side. Lad Duncan's played the ball back in. Ramadani's got in ahead of Obalai with the header, and Miovski's kind of peeled off Sean Kelly. I watched Sports Scene last night, and they picked up on the analysis there that Sean Kelly had obviously addressed that Miovski was in and around him. He had picked him up, and then he essentially took his eyes off him for a split second. Miovski spun him and got in at the back post, and it's a good finish, but it's a terrible time to concede the goal right on the stroke of half time. And second half, Davy made a tweak in the shape. He brought on Morgan Boys. He took off Sean Kelly as well and brought on Jason Holt, went to a 3 at the back. I don't think Davy makes that tweak tactically if we're not a goal down, personally, because I think we'd done enough in terms of stifling Aberdeen and not letting them create a great deal of clear-cut opportunities in the game. It was quite a scrappy affair. So I don't know if the scorelines maybe made Davy act on that. However, we kind of, again, myself and Dave said on commentary that we did think that Bruce was a wee bit isolated, and maybe he's done that to get Joel Newbley a bit closer to him in terms of playing off him a little bit more. So there's maybe more to the change at half time, but I thought second half we kind of reverted to going quite direct for large spells of it, and I thought Aberdeen did the uglier side of the game better than us on Saturday in terms of picking up your second balls and winning those initial first contacts and things like that in the middle of the park. Graham Shinney kind of set the tone in that aspect, I thought, at times. And albeit we created a couple of better opportunities in the second half. Newbley's had that one that's come to him he's worked an opportunity, it's been cleared off the line. Anderson's had one as well, which he's been played through. Brilliant pass, by the way, by Stephen Kelly. He's been played through in behind, and there's a block being made. But again, as I say, I think Aberdeen just did the uglier side of the game a little bit better. And as I thought, their two centre-backs, Pollock and McDonald, were very good. Did what you would want your defenders to do in terms of just kicked and headed anything that came at them and cleared their lines really well. I thought Ross McCrory had a very good game at right back as well. But yeah, I felt second half we maybe had to get the ball down a little bit more and try and keep them under a bit of sustained pressure, especially with the pressure that Aberdeen are under. Granted, they've got rid of a manager recently and maybe got that pressure off their backs, but they're not having the best of seasons by their standards. And I think if we got the ball down a little bit more and tried to keep them under pressure, keep them in their half, I think you maybe get the crowd turning on them and putting their players under a little bit more pressure. But yeah, it was a frustrating one. I think if that game finishes 0-0, I don't think there's any complaints. But could we have gone up and imposed ourselves a little bit more on the game? I think we probably could have. And that's where I would say I think Aberdeen did the uglier side of the game better, which is why they ended up coming out on top.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most fair kind of analysis of it. And I think that's where there'll be maybe a bit of an element of disappointment with that. We know that Aberdeen haven't been playing too well this season. They haven't been up in form tremendously well. And for us to kind of go there and not really create too much, I think that's maybe something the last kind of couple of weeks it's maybe been a wee bit disappointing. I guess obviously the Rangers game you're not maybe expecting too much, but between the Inverness game as well as like this one here, just a lack of chances being created. That uglier side that we seem to have been so well known for doesn't seem to quite have been there. Either we're not really kind of getting that springing onto the second balls nearly as much, keeping teams kind of pinned in for a wee bit, putting a wee bit more pressure and, getting their fans against them. Obviously, 3 games isn't something to kind of make it feel like that's something that's like a proper issue. Maybe it's just a poor run of form for ourselves in terms of those aspects. But as we talk about it, we're coming up to that kind of crunch end of the season where the top 6 is going to be decided fairly soon. We need to start picking up points if that is what our aim is going to be. We've seen last year what happened when we started dropping silly points and not properly imposing ourselves on games, not creating enough chances, not putting chances away, and what happened on that day before the split could possibly happen again if things go, or even worse, beforehand. But yeah, I think what you've kind of said just kind of spot on there. I don't think that there's I don't think it's a particularly bad performance. It's just a game that just lacked quality and kind of all kind of circumstances, in all honesty. And they've got a 15-goal season striker up front who's finished tremendously. That's made a difference in the end. And yeah, I think that's all it was going to take. I don't think there was much more that would happen other than maybe a break at a set piece or something like that. And I guess in a way that's kind of frustrating for myself, is that we seem to be relying on that a little bit too much for my liking. We're relying on maybe a wee break in a box or something like that from like a set piece rather than kind of creating it for ourselves. But yeah, Pittodrie's a tough place to go. Although Aberdeen have had a poor season, I think their home record is actually pretty excellent so far. Usually, if you're going up to Pittodrie, you're expecting to come away with anything. No, but they're not what they used to be. In maybe like 3-4 years ago or anything like that. They're not a team who should be massively feared. So I guess it's. Yeah, there will be like an element of disappointment in what could have been, had we been, fully up to scratch as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned about Aberdeen's home record, to put it in perspective, 28 of their 35 points have come at Pittodrie this season, and 31 of their 40 goals that they've scored in the league this season have been at Pittodrie. And they've conceded 51 goals this season, only 14 of those have been at Pittodrie. So their home form compared to away form, it's night and day. So it was always going to be a very difficult game, but doing a little bit of research, looking at both ourselves and Aberdeen have not picked up a point, having gone behind this season. We've only picked up 3 points, having gone behind this season, which was away at Kilmarnock. So I thought that first goal was going to prove quite important in the game. And as I say, had we got in at half-time, had we seen that little spell out just before half-time, I'm not 100% sure Davy makes that tactical tweak in terms of the change in shape. Albeit listening to Davy's comments, I don't think he was all that pleased with the first half performance, but I think he's got Aberdeen where he wants them. Frustrated, not created a lot at home. If he gets in at half-time 0-0, and as I say, I think watching the game and watching the highlights back, that game finishes 0-0. I don't think anyone complains about the final result in that. And as you mentioned, the difference has been a quality striker getting a sniff at goal, and he's taken his opportunity. That's essentially proved to be the main difference in the game. But as I mentioned, it was that uglier side of the game. I think Aberdeen probably ended up winning the battle, is the best way I would put it. And that's echoing back to the McInnes days of Aberdeen. McInnes used to always use that line when he was talking about playing Livingston. You need to win the battle first, and they did that side of the game really well. What did you make of that tactical tweak in terms of the shape at half-time, Angus? And are you of the same opinion? Do you think that change gets made if the scoreline's still 0-0?
Yeah, I do think that kind of a more peculiar one, going a goal down, taking off Stephen Bradley, who'd be, a threat. It was Stephen Bradley came off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bradley and Kelly coming off for Bolton boys. I think that is a bit, peculiar. I guess, what you're aiming for there is the fullbacks to kind of get forward. Sure, if that means that we're going to start getting, kind of more chances from like deep crosses or whatnot, but necessarily did it happen for the most part? Not entirely sure. He's kind of talked about how Anderson, kind of was, isolated in that. I'm not sure that, maybe taking away a winger from him, putting wing backs, kind of creating a wee bit more of a distance between the back line and the front line as well. If it works, it works because you've got like Maraud and fullbacks going up in that. But yeah, just a lack of kind of chances being created. I don't know if maybe that was the thinking was, right, it's not working this way. We need to, kind of revert to something else. It may open up a different avenue. It may force the likes of the Aberdeen, like kind of forward players and midfielders to to be wary of like deeper runs coming in or whatever like that. Also gives like the centre halves they have to occupy, kind of two threats as opposed to one. But if the goal doesn't go in, I think, as you're saying there, if Davey, feels that he's kind of got them in there where he wants, the kind of the game plan to frustrate and stifle them and whatnot and make sure that they aren't getting ahead. I don't see the change kind of being made because, things are going, as tactically set up. It's fine, 0-0 away from home so far against a free scoring team. I don't think it kind of screams out for anything to kind of happen. Maybe you make the change in the middle of the park if you're looking to retain the ball better or you're looking to, attack a wee bit more. But going to the back five, a bit of an odd one, I would say.
It's one of those ones, had we went and got ourselves back in the game and ended up getting a result, we'd be sitting praising Davey. So it's just more an observation and a discussion point. But the other point on maybe looking at those subs is Sean Kelly coming off. I mentioned about winning that battle. He offers quite a lot in terms of winning a lot of second balls. He's obviously his height, his presence in the middle of the park can add to that as well. So that's maybe something to kind of look at. But there were a couple of positives, I would say, from the outing up at Pittodrie. Jack Fitzwater made his 100th appearance for the club. We obviously expect Jack to move on in the summer, but I thought he had a very good afternoon. I think he had two different challenges in the game. First of all, he was tasked with Miowski pretty much the first half, and I thought he'd manned him very well. Second half, he went to the right-hand side of a back three, was probably up against Duke a little bit more on that side. And again, I thought he handled that threat pretty well during the game. And another positive is a little bit deeper, but we saw the lad Lucas Stenhouse on the bench from the academy set up. That's something to be really positive about, seeing these guys getting an opportunity on the bench, even if they're not getting on, that chance to experience that match day experience. And it gives kids who are involved in that academy set up the opportunity to see that there is a pathway to getting into the first team. So that was something really positive to take from the game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've seen somebody say that, is it the first academy graduate to be on the team sheet since like Matthew Knox back in what would have been 2016, 2017 or something like that, which is pretty mental to kind of think about. But obviously, the kind of steps that were taken, to kind of get the club into, a better kind of place. But yeah, it's good to see that confidence in a player to make the bench at least, obviously little intention of playing the game against, away to Pittodrie, that, maybe if you're starting to win that game or something like that, or it's kind of comfortable, you may chuck him on or that. But yeah, it's hopefully something that can spur on, the players in the youth team. It shows also as well that the kind of look that, Davey and that are having into the first team, we've had a couple of issues in recent seasons where we've had benches where players have just been named on it because, to kind of fill it up rather than having any intention of playing them. And I think, having some youth players kind of on the bench, as long as it's not taken away from any game time elsewhere, yeah, it's a good kind of thing to have, kind of get some mixing in with the team and can hopefully create that progression that kind of naturally comes through. It'd be good to see some players getting some game time coming through the youth ranks because, it's something that we've enjoyed, in the past, maybe not so much in recent years, but you look at some of the players who have went through, like your Doran, Snodgrass, your Griffiths, your Hallidays and stuff like that. Yeah, hopefully there's, some more who can follow in those footsteps.
Exactly. And as you mentioned, we had quite a proud track record of producing young players many, many moons back. And for obvious reasons, financial reasons, we had to go away from that. It was a cut that was probably necessary in terms of running the football club, but we've managed to build that back up as the clubs became a little bit more financially secure with our period in the top flight. And as I mentioned, it gives players that are involved in that academy set up a clear pathway that they can get into the first team if they've got what it takes. And I know in this particular case with Lucas Stenhouse, he went down and got on when we played down at QPR in the World Cup break. He also went away with the team to Turkey as well, part of that famous Titanic Cup winning squad. So he'll always have that to his name. But yeah, it's great to see that pathway for the football club. But we always mentioned, Angus, in previous podcasts that we thought January was going to be the make or break month in terms of where we're looking at being at the end of this season in terms of pushing for the top six, or if we're going to be dragged into something a bit uglier. We got to that month pretty much unscathed. We always said that this month was going to be the difficult month, and we picked up the points where we expected to pick up the points, which was Kilmarnock. We're now going into 3 back-to-back home games this month. What's your kind of thoughts going into those?
We need to create a lot more, I think. We haven't done so in the last 3 games nearly enough. Fair enough, away to Pittodrie, Rangers at home, fair enough. Hold hands up at that. These next 3 games, I think, if there's something kind of similar, then I think we can kiss top 6 goodbye, in all honesty. We need to at least show a little bit of something in these kind of next games. Not necessarily must-win games for all of them, but, points are going to be kind of critical in here, and it could go a long way in deciding, who ends up into the top 6. I think just in general, that performance needs to be better, in terms of, becoming a threat against some of these sides. Because realistically, against the teams who we have left this season, we've already played Celtic 3 times, we've already played Aberdeen 3 times, we've played Hearts 3 times, played Rangers 3 times. There's not really anybody who we should probably be fearing. We've played essentially the big guns. We've got Hibs this weekend as well. So after this weekend, we've played the 5 biggest teams in the country 3 times each. In terms of if you're looking at the run-in, that should pose us in pretty good place. The performances need to be up there though to kind of power us on there. And good performance this weekend against Hibs. You look at the confidence that could provide into us, and the momentum that could end up building, and it could be a very, very good kind of run into the top 6. I don't think that this game is as critical because obviously it's one of the rivals for the top 6 as well. But we will have plenty of other opportunities as well. But I think we've just got to get those standards back to where they've been earlier in the season, back to where they were for that Kilmarnock game, which is only about 4 weeks ago. Get back to those kind of ways, and hopefully we can be on to better things again. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, the level of performance needs to pick itself back up to the standards that we'd set kind of through the month of January, and that Kilmarnock performance, especially the first 45 minutes of that game, is what we know the team can do. The Hibs game at the weekend is a very difficult game because Hibs have hit a decent run of form in recent weeks. Dundee United game is probably just the goalposts have moved on how we look at that one, given Liam Fox left his role yesterday. So they'll be, and we saw what they did after losing 9-0. Jack Ross left and then they came and beat us in the League Cup. So who knows what we're going to see from Dundee United. And then Ross County as well have already come to our place and nabbed 3 points. It was a bit of a daylight robbery job, but it's something that we need to be very, very wary of. So, however, as you mentioned, looking at this run of fixtures over the next couple of months, especially this month with it being 3 games at home, we need to be looking to getting close to maximum points. Is it going to make or break us getting into the top 6 if we don't get maximum points? No, because I think other teams will take points off each other. But starting with Hibs, if we can go and pick up a positive result in that, results breed confidence, and hopefully a decent performance to go with it can help boost that morale going into important games heading into the top 6 split. We're delighted to have Strana Apparel as sponsors of Talk Livi. UK based with a Swedish soul, we are Strana. Strana is an independent fashion brand from Scotland who create high quality and stylish attire for on and off the terraces. Inspired by terrace culture, lifestyle and music, all their clothing is designed using quality materials and workmanship to combine the very best style and fit. All of this means you get a premium quality fashion at affordable prices while enjoying a simple and secure service.
As a bonus for Talk Livi listeners, you can get 10% off your order using the code TalkLivi at the checkout. We'll also have some exclusive giveaways during the season, so keep your eyes peeled on our socials for those too. And thanks to Sterner for sponsoring Talk Livi.
Our women's side were at home for the 3rd week on the bounce, and this time welcomed Dryburgh to West Lothian. Despite trailing at the break, goals from Raewyn Murphy and Jess Murphy secured a 2-1 victory and a vital 3 points in their push for promotion. Angus, we were both at the game. What was your take on it?
I think we've got to thank Jess Murphy for having a get out of jail free card, essentially, for the most part. Very good. I think one of the common sayings that you see most seasons is that win was a sign of champions. One of those ones where you don't play well and you somehow grab the 3 points can be from, a couple of moments of brilliance, just kind of scrapping to the end. This is very much a win that kind of signifies champions. Again, very much the same performance as last week, I would say. Not looking, to get onto the ball nearly as much as maybe this is going to be, an unfair thing we have to keep on doing. We look at that 10-1 victory and how great they were. But I think that showed like the standards that they do have and, the way they should play. I guess to come off it so dramatically is maybe making things seem maybe a bit worse than, things actually are. But I think in this game again, there was a little bit of improvement in terms of, keeping the ball a little bit more. But I think me and you talked about this quite a lot during the game where the most kind of possession that was being kept was between the back line. I think it would have been very interesting to see, how many touches, Jess Murphy, Natasha Frew and Fiona had compared to, the rest of the team, especially in that first half where, they were kind of being encouraged to, kind of keep the ball, but, they were passing it between each other and then looking up and nothing essentially was offering, in the middle of the park. The wingers weren't kind of coming deep enough to, to kind of get on it, to kind of create channels. And it kind of led to an aspect that, it was similar to last week where we were just kind of firing balls down the line in hope that something breaks to us. And again, Dryburgh, were doing very, very well at kind of sucking them up and, counter-attacking as well. I think that was probably the most interesting aspect of it, Euan, is I don't know if you maybe agree with this, but I think Dryburgh is actually one of the first teams that I've seen, for the full kind of 90 minutes, pros that kind of attacking a threat against us. They had, I think I would say that they're maybe the most athletic team that I've seen come and play against us. They had a lot of players who were, very willing to, make runs in behind, to carry the ball as well. I think they had the left winger in the first half was doing that very, very well.
Yeah, the number 9 was a pretty constant, especially in that first half.
Yeah, who got the assist for the first goal for them, where, great running behind, passes it to the right winger or to the striker who, delightfully chips it into the back of the net. The second half, I think it was more so the left winger, or did they switch sides? Oh, the left winger as well, who did have a massive chance in the second half that, probably should have sealed the game for them. I have to say that, give credit to Dryburgh. I thought that they were, pretty impressive, 6th in the league. I think that they're probably, in terms of an attacking output, I think they're one of the teams I've been most impressed with in this league so far. And, full credit to them. But yeah, for us, it was just very kind of flat again. Just not looking to get on the ball nearly as much. And we're missing Brogan Anderson, which I think was a massive thing as well. Somebody who likes to kind of drop deep and kind of make things happen. And we didn't create nearly enough. We just spoke about the men's team just there as well, not creating nearly enough in terms of open play. That was the same here. I can't really think of too many chances that came to us in open play. Thankfully, in the second half, we got a couple of set pieces that, thank God that Jess Murphy can header a ball so well from, a dead ball. She gets the assist one for Raywin, who I'll give great credit to Raywin because I think she came on and as to sit in front of the back line, and I thought that she was doing well in terms of getting the ball, carrying it, taking it forward a good 15 yards, playing those passes, a wee bit further deeper into their half, making Dryburgh have to kind of turn around and kind of chase the ball a little bit more with accurate passes and whatnot. She manages to tap in from a corner from where Jess heads it in. Don't know if it was maybe already going in, a wee bit of goal poaching there, but I'm sure they're more than happy to share the spoils. I think there was another one that Jess had that was cleared off the line. I think then obviously we finally get the winner. Corner comes in and Jess does what she does for her 5th goal of the season, and I think we're pretty lucky in this instance where that's happened. 2-1. I don't think we'd had any complaints had we drawn it. Don't think we'd have any complaints if we'd lost the game either. To talk about that couple of chances that Dryburgh had, I mean, they hit the post with a very speculative effort that on another day could just loop in. The biggie though, I think, is maybe just a couple more minutes before we get the winner ourselves. I think the striker came on. I think is on loan from Dundee United. Absolutely just ran through about 4 defenders, cuts the ball back to to the oncoming right winger who has the whole goal to aim for, and somehow manages to only put it right where Charlotte's running back into. Great save from her, and it's game defining in all honesty, because I think if you concede that goal late on, you're probably not coming back to it, especially with the way that we were kind of playing and, really struggling to create any open chances. But, full credit to Charlotte making a big stop, and, we've got players who've stepped up in the big moment there. Beth Mackay puts in a great cross, Jess heads it in, 2-1, changes the dynamic, changes the kind of a bit of the mood. You come off of that, you've battled and you've secured the 3 points, and it gives a boost going into the game against Renfrew next week as well. I think if you came off maybe the back of dropping points 2 weeks in a row before going away to Renfrew, it'd maybe say a little bit more. But I think this does quite a lot to help the mentality.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it's got that sign of champions about it. You can't play well every week. Right? I'm well aware of this. You're going to have weeks where you have an off day, but teams who are typically successful are able to still grind out results, and that's what the girls have done this weekend. They've gone in at the break a goal down. They've not been at their best, but they've still managed to find a way to win that game, and also scoring late on as well. That's another trait that the teams that are successful tend to have. They continue to create opportunities or find a way to win, no matter how late it is in the game. And as you kind of touched on in that first half, I think there was a bit more patience in terms of how they were playing the ball, but a lot of the possession, it was safe possession across the back three, and it wasn't really possession with a purpose behind it in terms of trying to play in between the lines. And I think that's what was maybe missing in that half. I'd mentioned to you maybe putting Beth Mackay in almost that little pocket as a 10, because she is very comfortable on the ball, very relaxed on the ball, so maybe getting her in to create a few more opportunities. And certainly when they made the changes in the second half, Beth did move a little bit more central. But yeah, there was very little created by ourselves in open play in the first half in particular. A couple of headers here or there. I think one Ashley Elizabeth had, it was a comfortable save for the keeper. But Dryburgh were, had a lot of purpose when they tried to break on us, and the goal comes from a counter-attack. The number 9, drives down the left-hand side, comes inside, plays the ball across, and it's a delightful finish, chipped over Charlotte Ferguson. And I think Dryburgh were well worth the lead at half-time. And second half, it was, again, proving much of a muchness. There was a triple sub on the hour mark. Gemma Mason came on, Raymond Murphy came on. And as you mentioned, I think the changes in the midfield offered a little bit more. And again, a little bit more in terms of trying to play in between the lines. Mentioned about Raymond there. She was taking the ball on the half turn, looking to try and play forward, but getting into areas where we could hurt Dryburgh. Gemma was offering to try and play the ball wide, spread the play out to the flanks to Sharon Hughes-Lee, who had come on, and Lucy Brown as well. And I think that helped get a little bit more of a foothold in the game. As you said, the 2 goals come from set plays. Jess Murphy's won the header at the front post, glanced it to the far post. As we say, Raymond Murphy's on hand to tap it in at the back stick, and you're back in the game. Albeit Dryburgh had their chances to go and win it themselves. You mentioned that speculative effort. We didn't really think a lot of it at the time, and then all of a sudden it's clipped the post and bounced back into the middle of the area, and then they had that glaring chance just a few minutes before we managed to clinch the winner. And had they went and scored that, I don't think there would have been a great deal of complaints had Dryburgh come away with the 3 points in that game, or at least a point. I think they were worthy of something from the game. But as we mentioned, Jess Murphy using her noggin once again, great delivery and powered the header into the corner, and they've managed to come away with the 3 points, and they've done it the ugly way, but they've still managed to get those 3 points, and saw that Rossvale lost it at home to Inverness. So again, that gives the girls a little bit of a boost. One of their nearest rivals have dropped points again, and it should give them that little bit more confidence going away to Renfrew, where they've already went there this season and won 4-1, and it was a very, very good performance that day. I was there myself, so it gives them that little bit of confidence. But I wasn't there last week, so I can't really comment. Certainly going off what you were saying, there was maybe an improvement in terms of trying to keep the ball, but it's, as I say, playing possession with a purpose and trying to play through the lines, because they're more than capable of that.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting to see, the kind of the parallels between the men's team and the women's team just in these last kind of couple of weeks. Men's team, with maybe the best performance of the season against Kilmarnock, and then kind of since then it's kind of been quite a stark kind of contrast, and then it's kind of the same that's kind of happened here following that game against Renfrew. But yet again, as we reiterated with the men's team, there is room for improvement and stuff like that, and as long as they kind of can get back to those kind of standards, we know what they're capable of, and maybe they are kind of a victim of their own success in that kind of way, where some of the performances this season have been better and have been very, very good, to the fact that you kind of want that to be the expectancy there. And I think that you can see a wee bit of frustration from the players at times as well. I think they can tell that sometimes the performances aren't quite there, but one thing you can't fault is the continuous digging in there to to try and to keep on going until the end, even if the kind of quality hasn't been shown. But yeah, another good 3 points. Avoid dropping more points at home. Think of that as what, I don't know how many home games they've had, but to only drawn once and not lost any and won the rest is absolutely tremendous for them. And yeah, unfortunately, Jess will be listening to this and she'll be loving the praise we've been giving her. That head will be getting even bigger. So hopefully that may mean that a couple more headers next week. She should be unchallenged. At set pieces in that next time. But very, very good to come away with the 3 points. Stuff to work on, of course, but big game against Renfrew next week. Let's go and take 3 points again.
I'm delighted to welcome Colin from Longbangers onto the podcast. Colin, how you doing, mate?
I'm good, June. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good. I actually only saw you a couple of weeks ago. You were present at the open goal event as well. You enjoyed the evening?
Aye, I was just there to keep Matthew right, making sure he was saying the right things in that. Aye, it was all right. You done that before? Was that your first time doing that? Or?
First time I've done it as well. So
first time we've done it as well. Yeah.
I was absolutely bricking it because I fully expected little Livingston would be last on the list of clubs to discuss because we have the smallest support. And then first question that came up was about Livingston. I was like,
aye. It was good, and it wasn't exactly any intellectuals on the panel to challenge you anyway, was there? So it was all right.
Always helps. But it's safe to say Hibs' season so far, it's been a bit up and down, hasn't it? How would you assess it so far?
It's a funny one because it's been streaky. We went through the start of the season, or not a few games in. It was about September time. We were thinking we're flying, so we won a handful of games in a row, and then we went on a real bad run before the World Cup. And then since the World Cup, we've been all right. A couple of bad results thrown in, but actually winning games in the main, and again on another decent wee run. It feels worse than it actually is. I seen. It was just today. I think we're 6 points better off now than we were this time last season. And as we were saying at the open goal thing, we're having what's been considered a really bad season, too big a squad, not pulling in the same direction. And we're only, I think, man, I've got it wrong, 4 points off third place or 6 points off third place or something. It's not. We're not far away. And it feels like, but it feels like. If you take out the actual facts, it feels worse. And I don't know if it's because, Hearts have got other men in the media that just repeat the same lines over and over, they're the third best team, third biggest, and they're miles ahead of everybody else. You look at the league, you guys are the same. You are only, I think if you beat us on Saturday, you jump us in the league.
Yeah.
I think.
Aye.
So then you're on their tails. We're not that far away from them, but it's been portrayed that everybody's miles off their place, and we're no. So I think we're starting to look up. Although I think we'd be comfortable, we'd be happy with fourth place this season.
Yeah, as you mentioned there, Colin, talking about kind of streaky, I think it's summed up. Just I had a wee look before coming on to chat to you. 1 win and 8 prior to the World Cup break, but since the World Cup break, it's 2 defeats and 9 in the league, which just kind of shows you that contrast in form. It actually so happened to start your decent run of form after beating us Christmas Eve. What do you put that change in form down to?
I think we've started getting some. So we've been. I know everybody has injuries, but we've still got a load of injuries, but we're getting players back. Although then we seem to get somebody back and we just lose another one. With Boyle, Nisbet, and all that. So I think that he's cleared the squad out. That we had, I think, we had too many players. When I say Johnson, he's made a few points recently about. He's not kind of called anybody out, right? But he's talking that the squad was that big, it was hard to keep them happy, and it sounds like a few of them are a bit disruptive. Without naming any names, and we could all take a guess at who they are, but we don't know. We're just making it up because it was never out there before, and so it seems a happier squad. There's a bit of consistency, selection. We're playing players in their position. We went through a period where we were playing Porteous in midfield and all this kind of stuff, and players, out of position. So consistency, selection, and players in that actual position, and less to choose for.
Yeah, as you mentioned, a few injuries there. Martin Boyle being a big miss, having just come back to the club, but a big bonus in this recent run of form is Kevin Nisbet being back. He'd been out long term with a knee injury, and he's had a very good run of form as well since he's been back in the side. How big a part has he played in this recent kind of revival?
I really did, but then he was back out injured again because it was like one of these injuries. Like when they come back to long term, they start picking up
niggles here and
hamstrings and all that. So I think now I was going to say he's your top scorer this season. I don't know if he is because Campbell might have jumped him with it, scoring a hat trick in that against Aberdeen. I can't remember, but he's either top scorer or second or equal top scorer at the moment, despite no playing until the World Cup. After the World Cup, so. Big difference. Getting McGuinness back as well, even just available. How long that'll be for, we don't know. Because he's been totally in and out of the side since he came here. And then we've got the big guy Kukurevich, I think, is back in training as well. Who was looking promising. I think he had that many goals chopped off. If they weren't chopped off for various reasons, he would have been our top scorer. He scored a few, but I think he actually officially only got 2 or 3, but he got about 3 or 4 chopped off. Or more. So it's looking better because we're getting guys back. I think when you say the 2 defeats in 9, that would be one at Ibrox and one at Tynecastle as well.
Yeah.
So it's no exactly. It's not like we're losing to teams in the bottom 6 or the bottom 3, and we've chucked some silly ones away. Like even Ross County, that should have been a win because I don't know if you've seen that one or no, but. The goalie basically got chucked into the net, and
back in the 50s, that's a fair challenge.
It was mad. We were sitting at the time though, but then you're watching it and you're thinking, listening to the guys on the TV and the radio and that, and it was that bothered, and you think they have said it. It was since, but at the time there was no real uproar about it, and it was like Malky Mackay come out and said, Marshall said to me he should have done better, and you're like, 2 of them just threw him into the back of the net. I don't think he would have said that. He should have laid in longer, to make the referee have a longer think about it. But I mean, that's 2 points thrown away because of that. And otherwise, we would be much more comfortable in 4th and definitely chasing down 3rd. It's a real turnaround. But our worry is that it's another streak that stops, and we go on another one of the 1 and 9s that you mentioned, or whatever it was, the other numbers you gave earlier.
Yeah, I'd mentioned that to you and Matty actually when I saw you guys the other week about Lee Johnson's kind of track record in management, and everywhere he's been, it's like that. It's very streaky. It's 1 defeat in 8, then it's 1 win in 9, and it just seems to be a constant cycle of that lack of consistency, and it's these little streaks here and there that you seem to have, and he seems to have brought it to Hibs as well. It's weird,
It's weird that a manager would have that impact. Like you would think, you could see a club maybe being like the culture of the club, but he's taken that way. And the Sunderland fans were saying that when he came to Hibs, streaky Lee and all that. And you think, how can it be? Like, what is he doing then? What is he? He must rest on his laurels or something, or like get too confident, or I don't know. Like, what could it be that it's a totally different set of players, or sets of players at different clubs? And yet he's done this everywhere he's went. So our worry is that
he's consistently inconsistent, is basically.
Aye. So there's not many games left, so we're just hoping that he can string this one out till the end of the season.
As you were saying as well, it was a pretty busy January with a number of players moving on out the club. one being Ryan Porteous as well, who I'm sure will be a big miss for Hibs going forward. But a few new faces have arrived as well. What have you made of the kind of turnover in the squad in January?
There was a massive influx in the summer. It was like 15 players came in, so he's just kind of tidied that up. Poach's going is, in one sense, it's no great, right? Because he's a promising player and all that. However, we've looked a more solid team since he's not been in it, because we've got defenders defending. He was playing in midfield, but even when he played in defence, he liked to and Rocky, he got injured in the derby as well. At January, they would bomb on. At times, they were bombing on past the midfield, and you're going, "Oh, wait a minute!" Whereas now, Hanlon and Fish are just there defending, either in it, kicking it, getting rid of it, like proper defensive basics. Nothing fancy. No trying to play the World Cup pass for defence, and it's like just come back to basics. On top of the other stuff I said earlier, that's another one. We've got defenders defending, we've got midfielders playing in midfield, doing midfielder stuff, and hopefully strikers scoring goals. And it's not trying to be too clever, and it's no right to say, because you'd think Porteous would. If Porteous had been told just to defend, I'm sure he could do it better than Hanlon or Fish.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, either wasn't told that, or he didn't want to do that. I don't know which one it was. And now we look more solid because of it, as well as adding in a proper defensive midfielder.
Is that the laddie Diego?
Yeah, Diego, the Australian. Yeah. So we got rid of Kenna up to Ross County. He's on loan up to Ross County, the young guy we had in there. But Johnson didn't always play him. And actually that coincided with the streak. When he was in the team, we were doing better. When he was out of the team, we weren't. We brought up a defensive midfielder in, we're doing better again. So that also is possibly a part. It just looked more solid. And Diego's an experienced head compared to Kenna being the young guy. Kenna's only I don't even think he's 20.
Yeah.
Whereas Diego's in his early 30s. So that they do the same thing, but one's a bit more experienced. He doesn't do anything fancy.
Every team needs one the way. Every team needs.
He just knows where to go. He just knows where to go to intercept something or make the clearance. So it's just. It's not the Hibs way in inverted commas, but I love it. Like defenders just defending and defensive midfielders doing the basics. I love somebody doing the basics of their job well.
Yeah, I'm fully with you on that. We came up against the Aberdeen side at the weekend that had two centre halves that just kicked and headed anything that came near them, and they were excellent in the game. But just the very bog standard basics of defending they were doing. But to talk about the game coming up on Saturday. Could prove pretty crucial in terms of the race for the top six going forward for the remainder of the season. What can we expect from Hibs? I know it's difficult given how we've just spent the last 5-10 minutes talking about how streaky they've been, but what can we expect in terms of personnel and maybe the type of shape that Hibs might play?
We have been playing one defensive midfielder, but actually in the last game there, who was it we played? Our games are streaky at the moment. The opposite is streaky, actually. We play every 2 weeks now. So we played two defensive midfielders, I think, in the last game. I could be wrong there. And that I quite liked that, the 4-2-3-1. And it might be the type of game for it, because it's generally we always get a hard game through there. It always feels like we get a hard game through there. So I think we might set up like that again. I'm not sure if Nisbet and Kukarevich are both fit and available. But they were close, they've been training. I don't know if they would come straight back in the team anyway, or one of them would. I think what we've been saying, or what I've certainly been saying, is I think we need to, if we've got any hopes of finishing fourth or even challenging for third, we need to win this one on Saturday. Yeah. That's how important it is for us. And I'm hoping that's the message that's being drummed into them this week down there, because our record doesn't feel that great through there. I've never looked at the stats. I know we have won some, but we generally come away with a 2-1 or a 1-0 loss, right? But it feels like that. We need to win this one because we've got Rangers and Celtic coming straight after it. So we need to pick up the 3 here. If we don't pick up the 3 here, I don't think we're definitely not challenging for third. You're talking about top 6, right? You're talking about can we get third? That's where we're at. That's the arrogance that comes with supporting Hibs, and none based on nothing. But that's where we are with it. So I think it's a really important game. I think what you'll see is maybe a bit more basic a Hibs team than what you've seen before, and that, like, basic in terms of doing the basics and doing the basics well, and that's what I hope we see. Which I don't know what that means for the game, because it could be dull, but I'd happily take a rubbish 1-0 win on Saturday.
Well, I mind the game at the start of the season. We were 1-0 up at half time. Hanlon's embarrassing attempt at a tackle on the edge of the box. But second half, I think Johnson tried to make it into a scrap, and Hibs actually got back in the game as a result. So I could maybe see him going with something kind of similar on Saturday, to be honest. But where can Livi potentially hurt Hibs? I know you won't want to give too much away in case Davy Martindale is tuning in, but where is it that Livi could possibly cause some problems?
He wouldn't be wanting to listen to me anyway if he would have listened to Longbangers. So where we have struggled has been like crosses coming into the box, but with those two playing centre half, it's been a lot more comfortable. Where we've struggled is stopping crosses coming in, so the fullbacks actually getting down and closing players down. Whether that's still a weakness with the new tightened up defensive midfielder and centre halves doing centre half stuff, I don't know. But that's potentially there. I can't remember who your wide players are. If you've got any tricky, because you've got obviously Forrest in that left.
Big Joel Newbley's been playing back out wide since Bruce Anderson's been back, and the young lad we actually got from you guys in January, Stephen Bradley's featured quite a lot of late. So they've kind of been playing either side of Bruce Anderson most weeks since the winter break.
So potentially, I mean, I'm sure Bradley will have a point to prove. I take it he's not on loan or anything. We actually released him.
Yeah, permanent deal, and he's been fantastic on the most part. Last couple of games, albeit we've not picked up very good results either, but he's been a wee bit quieter the last couple of weeks. But he's certainly a player with a lot of potential. Surprised Hibs didn't maybe give him a few more minutes here and there.
Yeah, we never really saw much of him. I think he maybe played a few minutes, maybe at Livingston once. I'm sure he hit the post or hit the bar or something, and that's kind of where he made his name. But then he went away into Ireland and obviously didn't impress enough. When he's come back, he's just a casualty. The clear out, really. Too many players as it was, and hopefully he doesn't have a good game on Saturday. But they harm at the landing line. It just no good stuff, thanks. And Newbley, he's caused us bother before, hasn't he? But you generally through the middle. Aye,
he's played. I think the game at Easter Road we won 3-0 last year. He played as kind of almost the number 9. And he was the same at the start of the season as well. And to be honest, I don't think Hibs at any point managed to fathom out how to play him. So here's hoping that continues on Saturday for us.
Aye. Who is your goal scoring threat? Is it Anderson then, is it?
Probably. Bruce is our top scorer, but Bruce has been unfortunate. He picked up an injury tail end of last season, and then he's had it kind of reoccur a couple of times. So we've struggled to get him and Newbley in the same side most of the season. Newbley played pretty much the first half of the season, was playing as the number 9. Bruce started coming back into the side, but then after the World Cup break, Newbley was then out for 5-6 weeks. Bruce was playing through the middle, so I think it's just about now is when we're getting them both in the same side again. If I had to push it for a prediction, Colin, what are you going for?
2-1 Hibs.
He's gone for it. He's being confident. Now, obviously, you're one of the hosts on the Longbangers podcast. For those who haven't tuned in before, where can they find you? There's a few different podcasts that you guys do as well, isn't there?
Aye, there is. So the football one, which is Hibs, is called Longbangers, and you'll get that on Spotify, Apple, all that. We also do one called Short Bangers, which is not football related, although we do get the odd football type question in. That's just I think it's been called. I don't know if it was us that called it or right. QI for idiots. Is what we call it. So folks send a daft question and we just try and give an answer of some sort. So you can get that there. That's free on the usual players. We also have if anybody was to like it, we've got a subscription for extra stuff that we do. But yeah, we've got the long bangers and the short bangers, and we do like heat bangers as well, which is a mental health one again, not nothing to do with football. Although it was football fans that came together during lockdown and all that to start it, and it's just they pick a topic and talk about that. I don't tend to do that one, but we've got all them. I don't know if I've missed any out, but that's definitely 3 of them that we've got. So that's what we do. So there's a couple of non-football related ones there. If anybody's interested in listening to some idiots talking about daft stuff, that's what we do.
I encourage anyone to go and listen to you guys because the content that you all produce is fantastic, as you say. A bit of football, bit of everything else as well in there. But Colin, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast. I mean this in the nicest possible way. I hope you have a miserable Saturday afternoon, and I'm sure you'll be wishing the same to me as well. But best of luck for the rest of the season as well. That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thanks again to every single one of you for tuning in, week out. If you can, we'd love to hear your feedback as always. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply message us on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram.
As Euan said, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, so search Talk Livi to find us and you'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week, and thanks to all our listeners for tuning in as always. And let's hope for another great week following the Lothian's finest football team.
West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail. Livingston, oh Livingston, it's up to Ambervale. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston. We love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Amberville Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier Division. Livingston. Livingston, Livingston.